You're listening to the PreSnap podcast, brought to you by LineStar, the top-rated DFS tool set and #1 companion for DraftKings, FanDuel, and Yahoo Daily Fantasy. Go LineStar Premium now at LineStarApp.com. Now, here are your hosts, fantasy football experts Joe Pisapia and Chris Meaney.
Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? It's me, Joe Pisapia, and welcome to the PreSnap right here on the LineStar app. It's me, and it's Chris Meaney, and it's you, and we are just days away now, literally days away from the NFL season kicking off, and we want to make sure that you are ready to go, make sure that you have not just the LineStar app, but the premium product, and that you get us, me and Chris Meaney, and this is our last of 4 preview shows that we're doing before we're going to kick off our regular DFS coverage starting in September. We're super excited. We're going to have a Monday DFS show. We're going to have a Thursday DFS show, and we're going to have a Friday wagering show. Chris Meaney, we are so close, my friend.
Yes, finally, it's here. Really looking forward to it. Like, obviously, like, come on, football. We've been talking about it for weeks now, and it's finally here. And, you know, looking forward to the shows with you, too. Obviously, you need to be subscribed, get the tools, going to help you DFS. But looking forward to the Monday show to just to recap everything that happened, and then hopefully, you know, give some winners to some people on Thursday with some DFS plays. And then you'll be doing a pick show as well heading into the weekend. So looking forward to it. Week 1 is basically here, and we're previewing the Wild West today. So let's do this.
That's right. And Mike Randall's going to be joining us on the wagering show.
What a guy.
We're very excited to have him.
Yes.
I know. Very excited. We got to hang out with him over on Flex Weekend. Very good guy.
Yes.
A lot of fun. We played a lot of video games and drank a lot of beer at Barcade. It was a good time. Things were fun. So let's get into it, and let's start. We're at the AFC West. We're going west, which is good because that's where everybody wants to retire because it's nicer out there. It's, you know, the weather's better. You know, San Diego would be nice. There's no football team there anymore, but still, I think that would be a perfectly good spot. But let's start with the big boys. Let's start with Patrick Mahomes. And I've said it once. I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. I'm sick and tired of hearing about the regression of Patrick Mahomes. This is what he did in year 1. Now, I'm not saying he's going to throw for 50 touchdowns again. But if he throws for 45 touchdowns or 40 touchdowns, and he throws for, I don't know, 4,700 yards instead of 5,000 yards, are we really going to be disappointed? No. And he is going to be, again, one of the most important pieces in your DFS lineups because this guy has such enormous potential on any given day to have such a huge game. And yes, he's going to be top of the board expensive. And yes, it's paying up for a quarterback. So I'm curious, what's your take on Patrick Mahomes this season, generally speaking, in DFS? Is he somebody that you are looking to target, whether it be in tournaments, because we all seen a lot of tournaments that win with Patrick Mahomes, or is this a cash game play, or is it a fade for you most of the time because of the price?
Yeah, you know, it may be a fade most of the time, but I wonder if most people will think that way as well. I feel like, especially in DFS football, a top of the board in terms of quarterbacks, usually they're contrarian if you pay up for them because a lot of people don't want to. Everyone knows now quarterbacks. Everyone knows to wait on them in season-long drafts. Everyone tries to find the value at the position. I mean, you look at week 1, there's some quarterbacks in the mid-5 range, low 6. I mean, that's great. And you look at Patrick Mahomes week 1 on DK, $7,200. He's $500 more than Andrew Luck, who checks in second. So just spending up on him, I think, is the contrarian move. You can play him in cash. You can play him in tournaments. I think that he's a lock for at least 42, 43 touchdowns. I mean, the offense around him is fantastic. He's just a rare talent. And I'm just really excited again about this offense and Andy Reid. They got so many burners. There's just so many players in it. So I'll pick my spots. Maybe week 1 in Jacksonville isn't one of them, but for the most part,
maybe it is. You know,
yeah, again,
because I'm tired of hearing about
Jacksonville.
You know, Jacksonville. You know, look, I'm just a little sick of it. I feel like everyone is living in the past with that team. 2 years ago, they were, you know, sniffing the Super Bowl, and last year they were completely inept. Now, granted, it's a different quarterback, but I don't know. I don't feel like there's this giant remake where all of a sudden DiFilippo and all these guys are like going to remake this offense into something really special, and I don't know.
My thing there was just because there's just so much value on week 1. Like, these prices have been set for like 3 weeks.
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying there. Like, Matt Ryan is $6,100. Like, Carson Wentz $5,700 against Washington. So there's some better spots in week 1. But yeah, but for the most part going forward, Joe, I think, you know, to answer your original question is that, you know, paying up for him probably is the contrarian move. Like, we all know that he's a stud, but people like to look for value at the quarterback position.
And look, speaking of values too, as we continue to look through the running back position, Damian Williams' role gets iffier every single day, it seems like.
Ever.
And I've been saying it. And I said it in the Black Book. I've been saying it now. I mean, here we are. We're almost in September. And Darwin Thompson's getting a lot of buzz. Hyde was on the bubble there. And then Darwin Thompson's a guy that, they've been very impressed with the pass blocking, which is a huge deal. And I think whenever you hear that buzz coming out of camp, that's something to keep in mind. Now, how much is going to be integrated in the offense? I don't know. I think this is something that shows itself out over time, but it's something to keep an eye on. And as you mentioned, the burners. Look, Tyreek Hill, we all know what kind of talent he is. We all know how good Travis Kelce is. We all know how expensive they both are. But at home, especially with this defense being so poor, it's definitely one to keep an eye on. I still say you fade away from Sammy Watkins. He's just, I don't know. He's just never excited.
A lot of them are tournament guys. Even Tyreek Hill, go look at the game log. There's some definite stud games from him, and then the good ones are really, really good. And for Damian Williams, I think he's somebody that you probably can't play in cash because honestly, how I feel is I'll say it, and I know everybody's heard it, and people who are Damian Williams supporters, they don't want to hear it. And Kansas City fans, they don't want to hear it. They're annoyed of it. But the truth is that this guy has never had more than 50 carries in a season, and he's only had 20 carries in a game once in his entire career. So I'm not convinced that he can go through a full season with a heavy workload. He could come out at any time. He's not built like that. He's had numerous concussions. He's already dinged up in preseason. So I'd be a little cautious of him. And a guy like Sammy and Tyreek in cash, but like Kelce and Mahomes, like that's the stack. That's a money stack.
Yeah,
it's a chalky stack. It's one that's going to pay off.
And I'll tell you what, too, keep an eye as the season goes on Miko Hardman too, because that guy's fast.
Oh
yeah, find ways to get him the football. And you want to talk about punt tournament play kind of guys, where you could just throw him in there and hope for the best. That he's that one big play. It's kind of like where Tyreek Hill was early, where nobody wanted to touch Tyreek Hill except me and DFS, and I used to talk about him on the show all the time. In that first year, I was like, look, it's not going to work a lot, but the weeks where it does, it's going to be well worth it.
They've already started using him like that. I watched the first two preseason games, end arounds. Yeah, he's super quick.
So he's more of a, and look, that defense is so bad that they're going to just continuously having to score points, which is great. I love that. It's my favorite thing. All right, let's go to Hard Knocks camp and let's go hang out with the Oakland Raiders, soon to be Las Vegas Raiders too. I am a fan of Josh Jacobs. I think that it'll be fun to watch him shut everybody up about the whole workload concern thing, because it makes me laugh as if like this kid in high school when he was like 18 years old wasn't touching the football 30 times. You know what I mean? Just because it didn't happen in Alabama doesn't mean it's never happened in his life. I mean, it's just crazy. How do you think you get to Alabama? Oh God! He's not that much older. What is he, like 21 now? I mean, come on.
And nobody is there to take any of his touches. Nobody.
No, I mean,
there's no threat at all.
Richard, come on. Anyway. So he's a guy I think is a secondary running back to keep an eye on in good matchups. I think that, look, I don't love Derek Carr for DFS purposes, but it will be fascinating to see if Antonio Brown really does have that kind of effect on him. Now, of course, Antonio Brown has to put his helmet on and play, and I think he will. And here's the $1 million question for you. Do you think all this negativity between the feet, between the head, his head, shoulders, his knees, and his toes, between everything, do you think you got a spot here with Antonio Brown where people are just kind of annoyed with him and that kind of limits the ownership a little bit, maybe advantageously to the rest of us?
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I know myself and yourself doing daily shows. I mean, I'm kind of sick of talking about Antonio Brown. I've been fading him in DF in season-long formats, and, depending on where he felt. Like if he's in the third round, I'll take him.
That's the beauty of DFS, because if you got a good matchup, you can own him that day, and that's the whole point.
That's what's so great about DFS. And we talked about this in the other show that we did. I think it was the South, and we were talking about just injury-plagued guys. Maybe we'll fade them in season-long formats, but we'll play them in DFS when they're healthy, and that's what's so great about DFS. So yeah, Antonio Brown, I expect him to. Helmet aside, feet aside, Derek Carr aside too. I mean, Derek Carr is a better fantasy quarterback than a real life quarterback, even though he did finish with the 6th best completion percentage last season. He's not totally awful. He did have a great year a couple seasons ago with Crabtree and Cooper on the side. I still think that Antonio Brown, every single week that he's healthy, is going to finish in the top 3 or 4, at least in targets and volume. This is going to be a bad defensive team. They're going to be throwing the ball often. Jacobs is going to be able to catch balls out of the backfield. He's not going to come out for Jalen Richard all the time. He can catch as well. He's going to be a bell cow back there. Antonio Brown is going to be a guy that's going to get a lot of looks. And I'm interested in some other guys here. It's just like tournament options like Tyrell Williams, I think, can take a step forward. He was like the 4th and 5th option with the Chargers last year. He's going to be potentially the number 2 and anything happens to Brown and continues to go on this path that he's going on, he could be the one in this offense. I know there's other little guys too, like Hunter Renfrow, I think could step up. Ryan Grant, like these guys are not exciting, but this is a team that is going to throw the football a lot. Right. And I think that there's going to be a lot of value with this squad.
Yeah, Renfro's a good call, too. I think we'll keep an eye on him as things go on. Let's move on to the Los Angeles Chargers, where Phillip Rivers, yet again, will be there, the old stalwart. And the old stalwart, him and Keenan Allen, a very popular pairing that we've used over the years, and that will still be good. But the guy that I'm most excited about on this team is Mike Williams, and it's not even close. We'll get to the Melvin Gordon stuff in a while, but Mike Williams, that's the guy to me that has all the upside. Last year with the 10 touchdowns, this year no Tyrell Williams, which means some of those targets are going to go to Mike Williams. And this guy is such a beast in the red zone. He is impossible to guard. He is impossible to square up. He is just one of these guys that's just like he is. And that was really his rookie year, because the year before he was hurt. So take a good look at that year. That's his rookie year, and drink that in. Okay. He is going to be even better this year. He's got a fantastic quarterback still who still can throw the football. And to me, Mike Williams is that guy that is going to be underappreciated, undervalued, and win a lot of tournaments coming into the early season.
One of my favorite players to watch actually in college at Clemson, 6'4", 220 pounds, just throw it up to him. And that's what they did. And you're right. He was tied with Keenan Allen on his team in red zone targets. And this was his first
year.
A
rookie, really.
As a rookie,
as a real, true rookie.
Yeah, because in his rookie season in 2017, he played 10 games. He only had 11 catches. He hardly played. He missed like all of training camp, and the first few weeks he wasn't there with. Yeah, he had a neck. He broke his neck. Yeah, which is unbelievable. So he wasn't with Phillip Rivers in the offense. He wasn't learning the offense. It took some time. Now he had that full season. You're right, the full season with Tyrell Williams there, and a whole lot of other guys that are not there right now, including Melvin Gordon. And then now he's the number 2. Like Hunter Henry's coming back. He's going to be great, but I mean, maybe there's a little bit of rust. Mike Williams is a freak, and it's a mismatch no matter who is guarding him. So yeah, I'm very excited about him as well.
Now, as we're recording this, Melvin Gordon still has not shown up. If he shows up, then, well, it's old school Melvin Gordon. Hooray. I think this is going to go personally into the season, which leaves us with Ekeler and Justin Jackson. Now, for me, on DK, Austin Ekeler is a decent flex option. But outside of that, I don't like these timeshare situations. So I am going to fade this away. I know a lot of people will be on it, but I think on DK as a flex spot, Austin Ekeler has enough appeal for me personally. But outside of that, I got no love for this. Do you have any love for this running back situation without Melvin Gordon?
No, I don't. You're going to have to see it play out. But I will say this about Ekeler. He's not the type of guy that's going to get 15, 20 carries, but he's going to be involved. He's the safer guy. He's the DraftKings guy, like you mentioned. There was a game last season when Gordon was hurt, and they started with Ekeler in the first half. I think he had 5 carries for like 1 yard, and then they flipped it over to Jackson in the second half, and he was much more efficient on the ground. But there's going to be no real safety there at all. Trying to figure out which.
And it's not even a combo where I want, give me both of them. It's not like Latavius. It's not like Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara will be, or like Ingram and Kamara was. I'll take both of those guys in a single day. And
I think Rivers just throws the ball a whole lot more this year.
That's true.
What's going to happen.
And that's good for Mike Williams. That's what we want.
Yes, it is.
Let's go to Denver. New quarterback there, Joe Flacco, which is a good thing because, look, I know it's Joe Flacco, so I understand, make the jokes, but he's an improvement over everything that they've had.
100%.
So, a huge improvement over everything that they've had. And Emmanuel Sanders looks good, unbelievably, somehow looks good after
he looks better than he's ever looked. I can't believe it.
It's crazy. People, when I took him in FSGA draft in June, everyone's like, what are you, crazy? And I said, I don't know, man. I just saw that video. Yeah. He looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I'll take a shot. It was a 14-team league. I'm like, I'm going to take a shot on him late. But you got Cortland Sutton, you got Deshaun Hamilton. These are 3 legit guys. And if you got Sanders working in the slot and Hamilton and Sutton on the ends, Sutton's your deep guy. He's your GPP play. Emmanuel Sanders, I think, is your cash game floor guy. And Hamilton is one of those lineup builders. I like all 3 of these guys. And I own a ton of shares of this receiving core because they've been cheap and season long. But I'll tell you what, in DFS, I think the same thing applies. If they have a good matchup, I think you can dabble. Now you got to hopefully you got to pick right that day. Yeah. But I think that's the approach I'm taking with those 3. Do you think that's the right approach?
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it. Yeah, that's why you're running the show.
That's why
here,
we
brother.
do as well. It's our show.
Yes.
It's our show. Will always be our show. Philip Lindsay too, absolutely. Who's back and healthy, which is good. Now a lot of buzz about Royce Freeman. However, I'll believe it when I see it.
I was going to say, need to see it. See it.
And look, maybe I'm going to see it, and I'm going to want to throw something at my television about it. But at the same time, I want to see it. And until I see it, I'm still going to buy into Philip Lindsay. And this kind of goes back to the other thing of what's the ownership look like first couple of weeks, because people are, well, I'm a little afraid of this. That preseason panic is one of my favorite things. And I love taking advantage of it when you get into the regular season, because most of the time the guys are the guys, and that doesn't change. And right. I think Lindsay's the guy. I just think it would take another injury to move him off as that true number one there. And no matter how much Freeman might touch the football more this year, I don't know if that means that it's going to affect Lindsay overall that much, because that guy just, I think he just outworks everybody.
Yeah, he runs really hard. He's very impressive, and I think everybody just wants Rolls-Royce Freeman to step up and be that guy. And I'm sure you're right.
Yeah, they wanted Devontae Booker to be that guy too.
Yeah, they did. They did, absolutely. And he was given every opportunity to, be that guy, and he wasn't. So Freeman he'll be involved in the offense, but I think Philip Lindsay's role is going to stay the same, and he's definitely going to be the pass catching back in this offense. Especially, they went out and acquired Theo Riddick, and that made me think, okay, maybe they are just going to rotate through three of these backs and try to keep Lindsay fresh and healthy, because towards the end of last season, it did look like he wore down a little bit. But Theo Riddick is hurt now, so Lindsay still takes that role. I think he's going to get first down reps. Maybe Freeman comes in red zone packages. He gets 7 to 10 carries a game. But Lindsay has the higher ceiling because of his pass catching ability and the fact that when he gets the ball in space, he's actually really good. So yeah, I have no problem rolling him out in the first couple of weeks. Like a matchup against Oakland, that's a positive one. Week 1, there's some great potential shootouts here where Denver's going to have to play the ball and play catch up. So yeah, interested in him for sure. And you're right about Sanders is the cash game play in this offense. So he's fine in the slot. Yeah,
he's great.
Yeah, wow,
all right, let's move on. Yeah, seriously. Let's move on to the NFC West now, and we'll close this bad boy out. Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. New coach, new quarterback, same old offensive line. That's my problem. Now, I get it. Fantasy is different than real football. I understand that. I get the adage. However, I guess here's my question. I like Kyler Murray. I root for him. I'm short too. Okay. Like I want him to succeed, believe me, but I just don't think it's smart money right now. That's where I'm at. The offensive line is too much of a concern for me. And this was before the second preseason outing where he didn't look all that sharp and the penalties and all the other stuff. No. So I don't know how much that's quelled the people out there who are Kyler Murray truthers. I am not one of them. So where do you stand on Kyler Murray? Because I think this is a big dividing rod somewhere, early in the year where you're either in this bandwagon or you're not. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not either.
More of an indictment. Yeah, it's more an indictment to me on. And how often has a guy like Kingsbury or these college coaches come to the NFL and succeeded lately? Not often.
No, not often at all. And, he wants to run an up-tempo offense, which is fine. Chip Kelly had some success doing that. I want to grow hair back
on my head. Doesn't make it true.
And that's the thing. Like, Chip Kelly was able to do that, but you got to remember, like, when he came into the Eagles for Philadelphia, they had a really good squad with a great offensive line and great weapons, solid running backs, offensive weapons galore everywhere. Ertz, Jackson, McCoy, again, a solid line. Michael Vick there making things happen. So, he came into a pretty good situation. Like, Kingsbury he wants to run this off-tempo offense, but he's got a lot of inexperienced guys surrounding the inexperienced quarterback, which you alluded to in week 2, like the penalties. It wasn't just him missing throws. It's a vanilla offense. Like, it's going to take some time. They're trying to, he came out and said that they don't want to show their cards. He's not trying to put the pedal to the ground. Like I don't fully believe that, but even still, it's going to take some time for this offense. There's just way too much hype. The bottom line for me, there's way too much hype on Murray. The fact in season-long formats that he goes quarterback 4, quarterback 5 sometimes blows my mind. You're just setting the bar way too high. Even week 1, you're sitting there. He's got the same price as Wentz and Allen. Like, come on. I'm going to take Wentz in the ceiling. I'm going to take Allen on the floor. There's going to be some kinks that Murray's going to have to work out with a lot of his inexperienced wide receivers. I think Larry Fitzgerald, I'm interested in him from a DFS standpoint. I think he's going to be pretty safe. But there's a whole lot here that I'm just going to shy away from and just let it play out. And if I'm out on a Murray 100-yard rushing game and 200-yard passing game with 3 touchdowns, and so be it. But I know there's going to be some kinks in the first few weeks from him.
Yeah, kinks would be the
kinks to work.
Yeah. And look, the one thing I will say that I am intrigued by, I don't know, some people also love David Johnson and all that for the same thing. This whole team I'm kind of fading generally. I like Christian Kirk. He's decent talent. The one thing I'm going to go back to the well on will be Larry Fitzgerald, because I think he's older and taken for granted. and he's not that far removed from back-to-back 100-catch seasons.
No, one season.
I feel like, if you are a young quarterback or a young coach or whatever it is, if you don't rely on the Hall of Famer, then you deserve to be fired in the first 4 weeks. That's the kind of way I look at this. Like, this is going to succeed or fail. And if it's going to succeed or fail, you might as well put all your eggs in a basket of the Hall of Famer, who hasn't really lost much, in my opinion, who unfortunately has played with a lot more bad teams than good ones in his career. Could you imagine if he played for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Oh my goodness.
How good he would have been over these years. Could you imagine what kind of, he might be close to Jerry Rice kind of number.
He really would. I mean, that was his year too.
Career, right?
That was his year too with Kurt Warner when they lost to the Steelers in the Super Bowl. Yeah, how dominant he was. He's going to be a safety valve for him for sure. For Kyler Murray, he's going to play in the slot. He's 1 year away from those back-to-back 100-yard seasons. So I expect him to get back there. He's going to be a value all year long.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's go on to San Francisco. Another offense that we still have a lot more questions than answers on. Garoppolo got hurt last year, so we'll see now how good he could be. Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida. This is a hard pass for me in the running backs in DFS. Again, it's amount. Until I see it, until I know who the guy is. And I don't think they want a guy. I think they just want to mix and match. And that kind of scares the crap out of me personally. Does that scare you, the running back situation, San Fran? Because I don't like it at all.
Yeah, right. I'm kind of just out on everybody here. It's so funny how things change. Like, maybe funny is not the right word, but this time last year, Jimmy Garoppolo people were talking about taking MVP props. People were talking about top 5 off the board. Remember the show we had?
On ESPN,
the show we had you and I and Jake?
Top 5 quarterback. Yeah. It was hilarious.
Top 5 quarterback. We were like, what? This guy's played like 5 games. So it's going to take some time for him. I believe in him, but he doesn't run around like a lot of quarterbacks do this day and age. So you don't get that safety floor. He's coming off a significant injury. He really, again, hasn't played a whole lot of NFL. Like, when he came over to San Fran, he went on that magical run, and that was great. It was fun to see. It was awesome. But we haven't seen a whole lot from him. And these weapons are not stepping up in his offense. People are negatively talking about Dante Pettis.
Yeah, I don't get the Pettis thing. Let me tell you something.
I think Pettis is going to be fine.
Like, no, I don't know. Like, I don't get the people who are in love with Dante Pettis. Like,
they're just looking for a breakout. That's it. Like, he was wide receiver 21 6 weeks ago, and now he's finally come back down to earth where he's mid-30s and late 30s where he belongs.
But Marquise Goodwin there still. To me, the guy that has
Goodwin either.
I'm most excited about, other than George Kittle, obviously, we'll talk about him in a second, is Deebo Samuel. If you want to talk about talent winning out eventually, as the season goes on, I guarantee you, when you and I are sitting here in the second half of the season, Deebo is going to be one of those guys as a flex play or as a third wide receiver, as a lineup, they were going to be like, yay, Deebo. Like, that's going to be like a good look coming into the second half of the season, I think, as things go on, because he's already shown to me I think he's the most talented one of the group personally.
Yeah, I like him as well. And another guy I like who's hurt right now, and I guarantee you I'm going to be talking to you about him, probably mid-September, end of September, is Trent Taylor. Yeah, Trent Taylor in the slot. And, Kyle Shanahan was taking shots at Jimmy Garoppolo, but it was I don't know if he meant to do it that way. He was trying to say something positive, but he was saying the only guy that Jimmy can throw to right now is Trent Taylor. It's like these two are just on this unbelievable connection in the slot. It was Taylor.
That's fine.
I was actually interested in him a little bit last season, but so it's something to look forward to.
The shortcomings of Garoppolo being able to, read the progressions properly. Like that's the thing. And I'm a Pats fan, so I will say this. I always, when I saw Jimmy Garoppolo and even, buzz and things like that from the Patriots camp over the years, was that, he was still a work in progress. And then last year, everybody wanted to anoint him just because he had a job. And he had that great finish 2 years ago, where two teams that he came into San Francisco and got their butt kicked, who were looking forward to the playoffs and didn't care.
Exactly,
so they were not.
Oh, he beat the Rams when they rested guys.
Yeah, and they beat them in Jacksonville. Remember? And it was like, oh my god. And meanwhile, the Rams in Jacksonville, like, snooze. Like, who cares? We pulled on guys out of that game because we just didn't care.
Exactly.
And you got to take that with a grain of salt. George Kittle, on the other hand, I do think that he continues to be. If you want to pay up for a tight end, he's definitely one of those guys to do that. He has, perhaps equal tournament upside to Travis Kelce, because Kittle is good for the big play. That's the one thing about him. Now, where he falls short a little bit was the touchdowns, and that was in part because of the quarterbacks or lack of quarterbacks last year. But we haven't seen it yet, so I'm still just cautiously optimistic. But look, he's still a very solid play. George Kittle's still a great talent, hard worker, and I think a guy that you're going to want to have a lot of shares of this year as the season goes on. And him and Garoppolo is probably the best pairing. And it's funny because we talked about a lot. All three of the tight ends there, Wentz with Ertz, Mahomes with Kelsey, and Garoppolo now with Mr. Kittle, that it's sometimes better to pair the quarterback with the tight end in certain offenses. It's just a better look. Don't always look for that wide receiver pairing or stack. That's not necessarily the way you want to go in some offenses. Let's go to Seattle. Russell Wilson, very efficient last year in terms of throwing touchdowns, a very good fantasy season, a bounce back fantasy season for him. But the guy that I'm really talking about here is Chris Carson, who Rashad Penny is finally falling into obscurity again. Thank goodness. And Carson was one of these pieces last year we talked about a lot. We owned a ton, and it worked out. And I think this year they're going to go right back to this well. And I think they finally found their guy, whether it be by default or not.
I'm a huge, yeah, you're right. It may be by default, but whatever. So found him. Yeah, who cares? They found him. I don't believe in Penny, at all. I'm sure he's going to catch a few balls out of the backfield, but everything I heard out of camp is that Carson's going to be more involved in the passing game too, and I'm extremely excited about him. I love where he went in season-long formats, and he's just a safe guy. I mean, he finished 5th in rushing yards last year, 4th in rushing yards per game, 3rd in rushing yard attempts per game. He was top 10 in terms of just red zone opportunities. He was 7th in terms of carries. So this is somebody who is going to touch the football a ton. Only Baltimore ran the ball more than Seattle last year. I don't think that's going to change. Like, they lost Doug Baldwin. DK Metcalf is already hurt. There's Tyler Lockett is like the only guy. Somebody else needs to step up. They don't even have a playable tight end in their offense. So they're going to want to run the football. And Chris Carson is a beast. He runs hard. I like him. He's going to be one of those guys that I'll roll out in cash, because he's not going to be priced in that top tier. He's going to be priced in that next level, and already looking like he's under $6,000. I mean, that's $3,400 cheaper than Zeke week 1. Like, that's just value.
Yeah. And they should have been more aggressive on that wide receiver market. There were some guys out.
Yeah,
it's funny. John Brown, ended up in Buffalo. But you know what? That's a guy that should have ended up in Seattle.
Yeah, instead they got Jerron Brown there.
Well, and I understand they drafted DK Metcalf, thinking he could be that guy. And so far, again,
and he could be, but now he's already hurt and he's missing time as a rookie, which is not what you want out of a rookie wide receiver. You're missing the playbook. You're not catching passes from Russell Wilson. Like, he had a couple nice. He was heavily targeted in his last preseason game, but in camp there, he was starting to get a bit of a connection there, and now he's sidelined. So it's
Lockett's concerning. Fine. I don't get excited about Lockett. He's fine.
Yeah, but he runs good routes. He's a good pass catcher, but now he's
one of those guys like you play in
the first time in his career.
If you're playing the late slate, and you're isolating and things like that, it's like, okay, Seattle at 4:00.
He's boomer bust too. You're not going to be able to trust him in cash, I don't think, even with just being the one there.
Well, I'll tell you who I do trust in cash: the Rams. I trust the Rams. So let's finish on these guys who were very close to a Super Bowl. So we started with the Patriots a couple shows ago, and we're going to end with the Rams, the other team that was in the Super Bowl. So everything's come full circle. You see what we've done there? Unbelievable. My God. Structure.
Well done.
Structure. All right. So Jared Goff is a guy that I believe in. I understand it ain't always pretty, but somehow, man, let me tell you, the stats are the stats, and I don't care. This is a great offense. Sean McVay is a great offensive mind. Give me all the Jared Goff I can handle, and it'll be awesome. I'm fine with this. And again, especially in late slates, if you're isolating, Jared Goff is such a good play in those 4:00 games. It's not even funny. And the $1 million question, the Todd Gurley question. I am all in everywhere again on Todd Gurley. I was all in 2 years ago when I called him the fantasy MVP. You were on that show, I believe, at the time.
Yes.
So you heard it.
I've been the Gurley and Goff supporter. I at that show, at that network that we were on, it was week 1, and I was like, wow, Gurley and Goff are combined $10,000 against the Colts. I think I'm going to play them. I'm really feeling Sean McVay in this offense. They've just been, ever since then, Joe, they've been so successful. Like, we've been so successful riding them out. And people are going to be off Gurley. Again, DFS, perfect time to play this guy.
Oh, so good.
And you mentioned Goff. One thing I really like about him, obviously, he's got 3 very solid weapons, and he's got Gurley, and he's got Sean McVay, so that's all a plus. But 101 passes inside the red zone last season. Number 2, only 2 fewer passes than Patrick Mahomes. I'd love a quarterback that throws the ball inside the red zone in DFS, whether it's to dump off to Gurley, it's his favorite target in the red zone, Cooper Kupp, it's Brandon Cooks, who they can move around, it's Woods, who they can just throw a slant to. There's so many weapons there. This offense is legit, cash across the board. Yeah.
And is the Prince panic in terms of of all the offseason negativity. And I've taken him everywhere. I've taken him as early as 5th overall. I don't care. I'm sorry. He's going to finish as a top 5 running back, barring catastrophic failure. And catastrophic failure can happen to anybody. So I'd rather put my money on the guy who has been the number 1 back in football 2 straight years. Period. Yeah. End of story. He's the guy. So if you're going to be wrong there. And if you're going to go down with the ship, that's the ship to go down with. So for me, it's all Todd Gurley all day long. I'm not worried about Henderson. Fine, if he touches the ball 10 times, whatever. Yeah. It's about touchdowns. And Todd Gurley's a touchdown machine. And everybody told me last year that he couldn't repeat. Everybody told me to regression. And guess what? Up until the injury, he was better. So again, stop. It's like Tom Brady. When you tell Tom Brady he's no good, that just keep telling Todd Gurley he's never going to be anything again, and see what happens. Then you got these 3 receivers. I love Cooper Kupp in the full PPR. Woods has been very solid, more solid than I ever envisioned him being. I remember when he went over there, I was kind of scratching my head. I said, really? Just goes to show you how good this system is. Because Robert Woods went from being a nobody to being a very solid wide receiver. And then Brandon Cooks, who's kind of more the home run hitter guy. So tight end's nothing to write home about, but this is an offense with these 3 wide receivers and this quarterback. You can stack multiple wide receivers, especially if you have the matchups that allow it. You could go Goff, Gurley, and Kupp. You could go any which way direction. And Kupp to me is, I think, my favorite value because of the coming off the injury, because he is, people are a little shy about that. And also because this is another guy that, if you watch carefully, was getting a lot of love in the red zone area.
Oh, a ton. Yeah. And, all of one of his career touchdowns have come inside the red zone. And it was from day one, actually, that very first preseason. That's why I was, excited about Goff and company. Is that very first preseason game I watched was Goff and Cooper Kupp connecting. I believe if you asked Goff, if you had just a one-on-one conversation with him off the record, and you asked him who his favorite target was in this offense, he would say Cooper Kupp in the slot, 100%. So I love Kupp too. He's the value. Now he's coming off the knee injury. There's some talk about him being on a pitch count. Maybe you shy away the first couple weeks just to see how he looks, but I think you nailed it. Like, Cooks is that deep threat guy. He's the boomer bust. He's a GPP play. Woods has some safety because he's one of the better blockers in the NFL. He's always on the field. They use some end arounds in the slot. And then Kupp there's some safety there with him too. Once you feel like he's up to full 100% go, and he's just going to be a weapon in the slot. And if anything happens to one of these guys, Josh Reynolds comes up and he's involved in the offense. We've seen him before have some decent games. So there's a lot to like about this Rams team across the board.
All right, so there you have it. We've done all the teams. We've gone through everything, and we are ready to rock and roll. We are going to be live again that first week of September with the pre-snap shows. We're going to have the Monday show, the Thursday show, and the Friday show. So you're going to have 3 shows. Last year you had 1. Now you get 3. So thank everybody at LineStar. Go tweet at them and tell them how much you love them, that they've given you more us. And that's, again, what you've demanded, and we will give it to you. And you can follow us on the Twitter machine at LineStar App. Make sure you're downloading that LineStar app as well. You can also follow them at LineStar NFL. You can follow us at Joe Pisapia 17 and Chris Meaney. That'll do it for us. Make sure you get your Fantasy Football Black Book 2019 edition as well. DFS chapter, all the breakdowns are the RPV, everything you need to be successful this NFL season, the whole season. It's not a draft guide. It's much, much more. So that'll do it. Chris Meaney and I are ready. There's nothing left to do except set, down, win.
You've been listening to the PreSnap podcast, brought to you by LineStar. Hit subscribe, tell a friend, and stay tuned for the next episode from fantasy football experts Joe Pisapia and Chris Meaney.